On a crisp September morning, Flight 382, a massive Boeing 777, sat on the tarmac of a bustling Southeast Asian airport. It was fully loaded with passengers and cargo, ready for a long-haul journey across continents. The night before, engineers had completed routine maintenance, including a tiny, seemingly harmless software patch for the autopilot. The plane passed every check. In the cockpit, the pilots were calm, running through their lists, trusting the machine that had served them flawlessly for years. No one knew that this minor software update had planted a hidden bug, a digital time bomb, waiting for the perfect, terrible moment to activate. That moment, invisible and utterly insignificant to everyone, was moment zero. The plane lifted off into the clear sky. Everything was perfectly normal. Passengers found their seats, the cabin crew began their service, and the city below faded into a distant grid of lights. At cruising altitude, the pilot engaged the autopilot. Its job was to maintain a steady flight path, making tiny adjustments for wind and air pressure. But instead, the hidden bug began to stir. It caused minuscule errors in the altitude calculations. The system tried to correct itself, but each correction only pushed the plane further off course. The pilots noticed small warnings on their displays, but at first, they seemed like minor sensor glitches, nothing to worry about. But within minutes, the autopilot made a critical miscalculation. The plane's instruments screamed that it was climbing far too quickly. This triggered a cascade of automated responses that began fighting against each other. The cockpit erupted in a symphony of conflicting alarms. In the cabin, passengers felt a sudden jolt of turbulence, startling but not yet terrifying. Back in the cockpit, however, the situation was spiraling out of control. One wrong move, 1 second of hesitation, and the plane could stall and fall from the sky. On the ground, thousands of miles away, engineers were completely oblivious, monitoring entirely different systems. Moment zero finally arrived. It wasn't a loud bang or a sudden failure. It was a single, routine action. The first officer, following standard procedure, confirmed a normal autopilot adjustment. He pressed a button. The press lasted less than a second. But this was the trigger. That one click unleashed a chain reaction within the flight control system. The autopilot, now completely rogue, started issuing a series of contradictory commands, violently trying to destabilize the aircraft. The pilots knew something was terribly wrong. They immediately seized control, switching to manual flight. Their hands gripped the yokes, their eyes darting between the chaotic instruments and the horizon, fighting against the machine they had trusted moments before. Every second was a battle for survival. A single heartbeat of delay could have changed everything. In the cabin, the turbulence was now severe. Drinks spilled across tray tables, and the cabin lights flickered ominously. Flight attendants braced themselves in their jump seats, whispering words of reassurance to passengers that they themselves didn't fully believe. The rogue autopilot was still fighting, trying to wrench control back from the pilots. The cockpit was filled with an unbearable cacophony of alarms. Air traffic control, seeing the plane's erratic movements on their radar, started scrambling emergency teams on the ground. They didn't know the cause, but they were preparing for the worst. But inside the cockpit, 2 pilots were performing a master class in skill and intuition. Drawing on thousands of hours of flight experience, they fought and overrode the rogue system. They wrestled the massive Boeing 777 back into a stable flight path, pulling it back from the brink of a catastrophic dive. Once the immediate danger was over, they cautiously re-engaged parts of the autopilot, monitoring every single system with intense focus. Down in the cabin, the passengers, completely unaware of the life-or-death struggle that had just taken place, slowly returned to their movies, books, and naps. The crisis was over. The investigation that followed was chilling. It traced the near disaster back to that one tiny software update, combined with a single, routine button press. It was the perfect storm. In response, Boeing engineers completely redesigned the autopilot's logic to ensure this could never happen again. Airlines worldwide rewrote their emergency checklists. That single click, that moment zero, had nearly caused a global tragedy with one of the world's most trusted airplanes. The incident became a pivotal case study in risk management, software testing, and the delicate dance between human and machine. Aviation authorities studied the event relentlessly, using it to teach a new generation of pilots how one small action inside a complex system can have earth-shattering consequences. Safety procedures were fundamentally changed. From that day forward, even the most minor software updates were treated with the highest level of scrutiny. For the millions of passengers who fly every day, the story of Flight 382 remains an invisible footnote. But for the entire aviation industry, it was a terrifying wake-up call. It was a stark reminder that even our most advanced, reliable technology is vulnerable. Moment zero doesn't have to be a dramatic explosion or a major failure. Sometimes, it's just one click, one confirmation, one routine action that brings a perfect system to the edge of chaos. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the events that shape our world.